Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to Reimagining Smart Manufacturing and Supply Chain Planning presented by Dassault Systems and ETRetail.com. We appreciate you all being a part of this workshop. In today's VUCA world, which stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, companies that are capable of establishing environmentally and financially sustainable supply chains have the potential to thrive and withstand changing business landscape. However, with supply chains being disturbed, production capabilities deterred, and prevalent manufacturing and innovation processes in need of reimagination, our session today seeks to inspire the digital transformation journeys of organizations. Our discussion will bring together one of the prominent names discussing supply chain challenges and scope of improvement in various areas. Please note, for a seamless session, we have muted the attendees, but we will also have a Q&A session at the end of the workshop, so you can keep posting your questions and we will be happy to take them up. Let me welcome our keynote speaker, Mr. Ajith Gopinath, Asia Middle East Procurement Lead, Mondelez International. He has 16 years of experience in supply chain, procurement, logistics, customer service, and planning. Welcome, sir. I would request you to please share your thoughts.
Just to give a quick introduction of myself to start with, my name is Ajith Gopinath. And I've been very fortunate to have been associated with supply chain management and procurement for the last 16 years. And I've also had the pleasure of seeing this practice grow steadily in impact and influence. I feel extremely happy and honored to be here. And I look forward to share with you some thoughts on this very interesting, relevant, and arguably one of the hottest topics across many areas, not just supply chain, which is how do we leverage the power of digital to transform our supply chains. And these are based on observations and understandings of the general trends in industry. If there was any doubt in anyone's minds that we are in a VUCA world, I think COVID would have confirmed it, but we've always been in a VUCA world, even before COVID. What COVID did was just to underline it as a fact and catalyze us all into immediate action. Let's take the case of how our supply chains have become excessively globalized. Over a period of time, as trade barriers fell and logistics networks became faster, widespread, and more efficient, companies found avenues to offshore supplies of materials, as well as manufacturing and processing operations to various parts of the world in search of lower costs or specific expertise, and sometimes because that's just the only source. So today, if we were to trace our supply chain for a product from upstream to downstream, it could be like a set of lines zigzagging across the globe on the way to the end customer. Also with time, due to working capital constraints and obsolescence risks, the kind of inventories that companies are working on have become dangerously low, and the lean is now leaning towards fragile. And any disruptive event, be it the pandemic, COVID-19, or a natural disaster like the Fukushima earthquake, or a geopolitical event like the Russia invasion of Ukraine, or even a seemingly unremarkable incident like a container ship getting launched across the Suez Canal, can quickly eat into these inventories, and we have a supply shock there. On the demand side, today's consumer shops across multiple channels. They switch from offline to online and back and forth effortlessly. Retailers are on the hook to offer and deliver all kinds of services, click and collect, curbside pickup, home delivery, returns. Social media generates tons of demand signals and feedback, which provides a wealth of data and insights that can enable not just marketeers, but also supply chains to alter their supply strategies and inventory positions. Today, we are capturing and storing more data each day than we probably did in a year sometime back. It is said that 90% of data that exists today was created in the last 2 or 3 years. But the traditional supply chain setup with its current set of processes, ways of working, and systems won't be effective in this environment in dealing with this kind of constant flux and to do justice to this massive amount of data and insights. Also, most supply chains and mainly its planning processes work in a sequential manner. It's a serial set of steps, one following the other. Demand signals are tapped at a regular cadence. It could be monthly or weekly. And this triggers a significant amount of data collection, analysis, reconciliation, comparisons, scenarios, essentially a whole lot of effort. And seemingly connected parts of a whole system like distribution planning, production planning, material planning, they operate in silos and sometimes even have conflicting KPIs, which make them pull in different directions. Since all of these are serial events following a certain sequence, there is a certain cycle time. All the demand signals that are generated in the middle of a cycle are essentially missed, and one has to wait for the next cycle to make the correction to incorporate the new signal. So what do we need? What we essentially need is an interconnected network, in which a demand signal or a fluctuation or a change hits every separate part or element of the process at the same time. All the separate parts, they need to take in data and information from the outside world, be it related to demand or supply. They should also process information within, and they should also exchange information with each other. So in essence, what we're talking about is a concurrent live model, which takes in real-time information and throws up multiple solutions or scenarios or parts towards a certain end goal of service and cost. All the planner needs to do is to choose a solution or alter certain parameters to arrive at an optimal solution which meets a certain business goal. And this kind of speed and responsiveness can only be facilitated by a digitally enabled network. With this kind of a planning network, organizations can escape the traditional monthly iterative routines of meetings, deliberations, reconciliations, and the tons of decisions, many of which become redundant almost immediately. And what a concurrent live digitally enabled planning model does is that it takes the load of a major part of the decision making. A concurrent planning model, or digitally enabled, releases a lot of management time that can be reinvested into more strategic items and to chart the future course of the business. Additionally, the analysis and the insights for the management review will be more robust and granular, that enables executives to get a good grasp of the current trends and future projections generated by the tools. There will also be the ability to run multiple scenarios. Decisions would be more balanced with better quality of trade-offs and achieving the business goal, essentially. So we're not talking about functional KPIs or KPIs that are limited to a certain silo. We are talking about bigger business goals, and the system itself makes the trade-offs required to achieve that business goal. And with the click of a button or a few, the new decision or selection can trigger all the consequent planning and operations, whether it is dispatch plans, material call-offs, transport requisitions. Now, when you come to manufacturing, and we covered so far, how it would look like, from a planning perspective, how would it look like on the shop floor? And this is the real testing ground, because there are lots of it's more of a physical world, and there will be lots of exchange of information, flow of information, and actions from digital to physical and from the physical to digital realms. On the shop floor, this will translate into multiple applications, whether it is to improve the production output and performance, minimizing breakdowns and downtimes, and enabling, very importantly, worker safety and economics. If you trace the sequence of operations or flow through a manufacturing site, there will be multiple levels of value addition. For example, managing inbound material flows, automatic inventory updates, making materials available just in time to the manufacturing lines and processes. There is an opportunity to get the best out of physical assets and machine tools. We've heard of the digital twin that simulates material flows. It generates analytics of differences in virtual versus physical, and gives insights on potential actions to correct the differences. In future, one could do virtual, new product trials or remote support, or even a new machine installation with a digital twin. And this could be all made available to the operators or the supervisors on a handheld device. There could be fully automated in situ quality monitoring based on vision systems, which could help increase accuracy and consistency and help adhere to legal and regulatory requirements. From a maintenance perspective, we could get alerts regarding potential failures based on tracking of certain parameters. This could even activate a spare part purchase or fabrication, an automated activation. And the fabrication of the part could be via 3D printing. And finally, what we measure, we control. So dashboards with visual elements are helpful to monitor key KPIs like OEE, overall equipment effectiveness, and manufacturing efficiency in real time. But also, how will this impact organizations and how can they approach this new paradigm? Overall, a digitally enabled supply chain network will call for a rethinking of the business model and its value proposition to the customer or the consumer in terms of the main offering, the features, value-added aspects, service elements. There will be an introspection of the route to market, customer service expectations, inventory, and manufacturing strategy. A key aspect is how will the workforce adopt and embrace the new technologies. In some cases, they will need to work alongside machines or the shop floor or in conjunction with tools and platforms to achieve an objective. For them to embrace the new technology and ways of working requires flexibility and behavioral shift. Also, the nature of work will be more value added than before, which requires training and skill upgrades. There will also be a revision of the corresponding KPIs. People roles and profiles will become broader in scope as mundane tasks of data gathering, analysis, and reconciliations will be eliminated. And supply chain professionals will be more focused on scenarios and decision making. Overall, I think it's going to be very exciting times based on the general trends that I've observed in the industry and the way digital can overlay on top of these of the existing processes. And no matter where we are, and especially in supply chain with the oncoming digital age, I think it's going to be very exciting times ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ajith Gopinath, for kickstarting this workshop and setting the context aptly. Now, ladies and gentlemen, to delve deeper in these areas, I would like to invite our second speaker, Mr. Adrian Wood, Director, Strategic Business Development, Dassault Systèmes. He has been the Director of Strategic Business Development for the Delmia brand at Dassault Systèmes since 2019. He is responsible for developing new and innovative business markets and reinforcing the company position as an innovative leader in key industries. Dassault Systèmes provide business and people with 3D experience universes to imagine sustainable innovations capable of harmonizing product, nature, and life. Welcome, sir. I would request you to please share your insights. I would also remind our audience that you can post your questions in the questions section as we will have a Q&A session at the end of the workshop.
Let's take a look at what we feel some of the critical capabilities are that consumer packaged goods and retail customers should be looking at as part of their overall supply chain and manufacturing operations. The scope of potential operations are quite broad if you think about the life cycle of consumer goods or food across the entire breadth of the supply chain. And so it's easy to represent it in this sort of way with these 5 major areas of capability or operational discipline, starting at the top right with the very strategic processes of sales and operations planning and supply demand match. And then we have master production scheduling as we come perhaps into the weeks and months period versus months and years. Then as we get closer towards execution, we'll have detailed scheduling capabilities that will need to be put in place. Then, of course, we have to manufacture our products or manufacturing the packaging for our products if they are more food oriented. And then finally, we have logistics and delivery. And that planning for logistics and delivery could be happening at a strategic level as well, but useful to represent it this way as a continuum of the timeline. So let's take a look at each one of these in a little bit more detail. Starting off with sales and operations planning is the most strategic process perhaps that could stretch years into the future, helping us to answer questions like which markets and what demand can we support over the long term, what is our long-term supply strategy, how do we optimally produce what we need to meet our customer goals, and how do we achieve our strategic business goals as well as our customer goals that may be based upon sustainability, or it could be related to other metrics that are financially based or business based versus just operationally based. As a next step in terms of a shorter time frame, master production scheduling is a close cousin to sales and operations planning, looking more in detail about how we meet customer service levels more specifically, and then how can we maximize the resource utilizations that we have across the different facilities, at the same time trying to reduce inventory levels and costs. I've included these two together because some of the key attributes or critical capabilities are shared across many of these operations, but these two in particular, a level of collaboration and automation. These processes are involving many different stakeholders in the supply chain. The process to come to a final decision or plan needs to involve lots of different organizational divisions. You need to incorporate some advanced forecasting techniques in order to effectively put a feasible plan or a realistic plan of the future potential demand together. The problems associated with these are so complex in terms of the number of combinations and permutations and different possibilities and what-if scenarios that optimization has to be a key part of the capabilities involved in this process. And of course, you need to be able to represent all parts of your supply chain, all suppliers that are critical, all manufacturing operations, all potential customer channels and chains. And you need to be able to develop plans that are based upon business rules, not just operational rules. So these 5 key capabilities are critical in both of these two processes. Assuming we develop an effective strategic and midterm plan, at some point we need to start scheduling the facilities and resources within the manufacturing plants at a short-term basis. So how do we sequence production efficiently based upon what we need to produce as part of the master production schedule long-term plan? But it's also about reacting quickly to unplanned changes as disruption occurs, as it always does, and how to maximize the usage of some of the critical manufacturing assets and those expensive resources that we have, as well as the people involved in those facilities. And so critical capabilities here, again, automation to make sure we're managing by exception and not putting a lot of work into manual efforts. Optimization is, again, a key part of effective scheduling. It needs to be constraint-based. We need to develop feasible plans, so we need to consider not just material, but also capacity, time, other constraints that might be part of the process. And again, it is a collaborative process. So you'll see some of these themes across different parts of the different operations that we have, but this is a key part of the detailed scheduling process. Finally, at some point, we have to manufacture or execute against the plan that we've developed. And again, for consumer goods, this might be manufacturing the actual product itself. For food and beverage, it might be manufacturing of the packaging related to that. But in all cases, we have the same questions we're trying to answer. Can we ensure safe and efficient production? How do we capitalize on best practices rather than rely upon tribal knowledge if we have multiple locations and facilities around the globe? And how do we get visibility into all shop floor operations, not just what's in production, but what about the warehouse stocks? What about making sure we have good quality, making sure we perform maintenance if we have machines running at high speed in bottling or packaging lines, and so on. So the key attributes around manufacturing execution are we need to extend the manufacturing automation to all operations within the facility, not just what's happening on the production line itself. It needs to be integrated. There's an awful lot of valuable information to be gained about connecting our manufacturing systems to our machines themselves. And we need to maintain visibility, control, and synchronization at all times so we know exactly what's happening at what location and in what order. And finally, at the end of our breadth of spectrum, but this will also occur within the supply chain as well, and it might also occur at strategic levels, is the logistics and transportation planning. So strategically, we might also ask questions of what should our logistics network look like? That's part of this as well. So it's not necessarily happening just in real time. It could be strategically planned as well. But for operations or deliveries of products that we know are going to happen, how do we optimize the transportation to reduce the time and costs involved in that? And how do we respect regulations and limits on the drivers, the workers, the different countries' regulations, food regulations, while fulfilling customer orders? And how can we do it in a sustainable manner? So again, key attributes here that you'll see across lots of the other parts. Optimization. This is another very complex combinatorial problem that needs optimization to be able to solve it effectively. We need a level of precision modeling when it comes down to last mile delivery. There are some very detailed oriented aspects we need to take into consideration. And again, we need to consider regulatory and sustainability goals as part of this problem, because it's a big piece of the puzzle in doing that inbound, outbound optimization or final mile delivery. So that's a quick summary of what we think the critical capabilities need to be as you look across different stages of operations. Let's take a look now at what Delmio can bring to the table to help consumer packaged goods and retail customers put these into action. So let's go back to the start of our strategic process and sales and operations planning. As you can see in this workflow we're representing here, it is clearly and obviously a collaborative workflow and processes that you need to involve a lot of different stakeholders to develop an effective S&OP plan, including product organization as well as the supply and demand organization. So you need to gather information from different stakeholders. You need to ideally do that in an automated and integrated way versus spreadsheets and emails. So part of the Delmio sales and operations planning solution is to have a automated collaborative process that integrates a lot of the data to make that process seamless. The S&OP process is designed to be a flexible workflow so that you can adapt it to your specific process and situation. Every company is obviously unique. It is a collaborative process of developing a plan and forecast with the ability to have rapid updates, automated entry of information wherever possible, management by exception and using alerts to make sure that we're not going through the motions of developing plans without a reason or a cause. We also want to make sure that we have KPI-based planning based upon business goals and business rules versus just operational goals, and to be able to model those different goals so that we can try a lot of what-if scenarios based upon different business cases. So in demand planning, we use our statistical process and powerful algorithms to develop forecasts. We can include into that demand plan event management, promotions, campaigns, product lifecycle management, opportunity management, all the different aspects to develop a feasible plan. Then as part of our supply planning, we use our ability to develop a 100% fit to what's unique about the customer's supply chain to model their constraints and goals, and again use critical powerful optimization technology to balance the demand and supply and come up with a feasible plan or a number of different plans. So another key part as we get to the review and the final S&OP meetings might be to develop several different what-if scenarios very rapidly to see the impact of different potential global disruption or opportunities or different capabilities or opportunities that might be available, to investigate and compare those alternatives so that we can come up with an optimal plan based upon revenue, cost, and fulfillment options. Let's take a quick look at the supply and operations planning in action. And we'll start off by looking at this dashboard, which represents all of the activities based upon the different stakeholders' requirements of what they need to do to make sure everyone's kept in line. And we look at our demand planning process where we can review our forecast accuracy. We can look at all the different inputs that we have to go into developing that plan. And we can develop a cleansed forecast based upon aggregation of all that data. Then we can apply algorithms to automatically set future demand based upon the performance of different algorithms. So different products might work better for different types of forecasting techniques. We can of course include our product lifecycle data to make sure we take into consideration phasing in and phasing out of products as well. Then we move to the supply planning side, where we get the same dashboard of activities to make sure the collaborative workflow runs effectively. We can look at the different routings and the intricacies of our supply chain. We can look at how products are going to flow through the supply chain. This can also be a strategic process to determine the network environment as well. We look at our sales demands, and we can see based upon the initial plan where finished goods are being fulfilled or not being fulfilled if we're missing. And then we apply the optimizer based upon the key strategies and business goals that are important to us to develop these what-if plans and final feasible plans where we do our best to meet all of the customer demand that we possibly can based upon all the constraints and the makeup of the supply chain as it exists today. And we can compare and contrast those different scenarios as much as we want to develop as many different possibilities for how to meet our customer goals. So in summary, for sales and operations planning, it's really important to have this end-to-end modeling capability to ensure 100% fit, so that you're actually modeling what the critical elements of your supply chain are and representing all the different constraints and unique business rules. And those business rules are based upon KPIs and goals that are business-based, could be financially based, sustainability-based, and using optimization to crunch the endless number of combinations and permutations to come up with a feasible plan. And the value and benefit based upon all of these different attributes are significant overall in terms of developing better forecasts, in terms of forecast accuracy, making sure that our facilities are working more effectively, driving up productivity. All the time, we're primarily probably going to be looking at how we increase our customer service levels so we get on-time delivery and service levels as high as possible, but at the same time, reducing safety stock and inventory significantly. Master production and scheduling, of course, gets the strategic plan down to a much more manageable plan in terms of how much we're going to produce, what we're going to produce, when, where, and how we can promise that to our customers to meet our customer service levels. This is typically applied across multiple different facilities, but still very much at an operational level. It's still KPI based, still based upon key business rules and goals that are important to you as a customer, not necessarily to us as in terms of the software vendor. And it includes plant-specific production constraints so that we can develop feasible plans. We want to ultimately to be able to make sure that when we promise orders to customers, we can determine accurate and reliable due dates considering all the different factors of lead times, available material, resource capacity, and the sales plan that we have. So capacity planning, for example, plans the entire order book against our finite capacity, factoring in things like lead times. So if we have expected waiting, cooling, or production and transport times, we need to take that into account. We need to take into account material management. So if we have delays in supply or different disruptions in the supply chain, we can keep that in mind and make sure that we plan our production effectively. And we ensure that orders are planned according to their confirmed delivery dates as the primary goal. So we get visibility into individual orders at the most extreme level, making sure that we can promise those. But at the same time, we can decrease inventories, find opportunities to assign unused inventory in the supply chain wherever possible. We can create new supplies, taking demand and lot size into account, making sure we adhere to safety stock targets. And also manage those wandering bottlenecks that pop up based upon the nuances of our supply chain and manufacturing operations so we can reduce lead times without impacting the quality of schedules. As a quick example, Amy's Kitchen is an organic and non-GMO convenience and frozen food customer. They have over 250 products and they have a significant challenge with strong seasonality patterns and volatility. They've had a lot of supply issues. A lot of their raw materials are fresh, and so there's some challenges related to that. And so master production scheduling and supply chain planning is a key opportunity area for them to increase their operations to become more efficient. So enabling integrated planning, connecting tactical supply plan with the operational plan, giving them tools to have better decision making and enhance their productivity, and providing that visibility, that company-wide visibility, which improves their overall teamwork, communication, and operations. And the results you can see there are significant based upon this capability of providing a new level of decision support, optimization capability for planning and scheduling. So master production scheduling is all about providing reliable delivery dates for customers to ensure our customer service levels without affecting other customers or sets of customers or sacrificing profitability. And the optimization is the key tool that provides that capability to continuously look at the picture, the visibility across the entire supply chain of what is the capacity constraints, what is the supply, what is the demand, and seeking the optimal plan and continue to seek improvement to that plan so we can maximize fulfillment, minimize lost sales, and decide other ways to reduce costs like lowest cost sourcing to maximize our profitability. Detail scheduling is something that happens within the four walls of a single facility, most typically done in many organizations and companies via homegrown tools or spreadsheets have been the backbone of detail scheduling for a long time, but they're difficult to manage. They're manual, they're not collaborative, it's difficult to manage the data inside them. So again, Dalmia has a key capability of providing automated tools to integrate this planning and scheduling into customer plans. And with this centralized system, it becomes a collaborative and dynamic place where activities are easily managed and performed with automated optimization engines built in. So that optimization engine, again, will look at finite capacity planning, detailed scheduling, and load leveling. Always synchronization, even if you have a multi-level bill of materials, that's a key part of being able to schedule all the dependencies in the bill of materials. We can plan for optimum plans, taking into account all sorts of different constraints like capacity, whether that's machine or including labor, tools, molds, setup time, all those material and supplies and any routing constraints. And it provides a great way to develop a feasible plan, providing decision support, highlighting bottlenecks. It's very interactive, easy to use, and provides you with this capability to not only generate a single plan that's feasible, but to develop what-if scenarios as well, unlimited simulation capability, and a way to easily add a level of agility to the shop floor. This capability is used extensively by Dalmia customers. Thought we'd pick on one example which was not food and beverage oriented to just show the other side of consumer goods. Rosa Maria is one of Brazil's leading women's fitness fashion companies for private label fitness and activewear. And they had all those challenges we've just spoken about, trying to improve their operational efficiency and agility of what is a complex production process, despite the fact that there were no automated tools in place currently. So the strategy there is to improve the company's operational management, continuously provide innovation to ensure sustainability of operations, and provide visibility and control over the operations and the raw materials. You can see some of the benefits are very typical from what you'd see in implementing a finite capacity scheduling capability for detailed scheduling, good reduction in inventory, decreasing the production lead time, and making sure that customers can get the product out, or we can get the product out to customers as quickly as possible. And in the fashion industry, changing product delivery from 90 to 45 days makes a big difference when you're at the cutting edge of a new trend, perhaps. So we believe this is very low-hanging fruit for many organizations to add a level of optimization and scheduling to the shop floor to provide a whole host of different benefits around reduction of cycle time and setup times for machines, time savings in general, but also improving the bottom line in terms of reduction of inventory, at the same time increasing or maintaining your customer service levels to meet the fulfillment expectations for the organization. So according to Gartner, traditional MES architectures are too inflexible to cope with the enterprise needs of multiple manufacturing styles and multi-site rollouts, and they can't keep pace with the constant reconfiguration necessary for lean and continuous improvement programs. And so at Dalmia, when we talk about manufacturing execution, we actually talk about manufacturing operations management, because manufacturing execution is really just one part of the puzzle. There's also warehouse management systems, quality management, labor, maintenance, machine integration, and supply chain connection as well. And so the concept of manufacturing operations from Dalmia is about this unified intelligence across all operations within the facility, and also the ability to deploy this flexibility in terms of a manufacture anywhere. So we can centralize company best practices and manufacturing processes with site-specific operating environment and logistics. So we can make sure we maintain or improve quality and reduce variability by enforcing best practices and standards across all of our facilities globally. We can also react to production schedule and supply chain network events by capturing all the real-time events in production, quality, maintenance, material, so that we can include all of that and feed it into our view of what's happening and synchronize all of our production resources. And we can respond based upon up-to-the-minute feedback from both internal and external production operations. It also allows us to move towards a new level of efficiency by deploying a truly paperless manufacturing process and providing visibility from the shop floor all the way up to the executive level through all of our operations. So all of these capabilities are wrapped up into a single capability or a single offering called Delmia Apprizo, which again extends the operations just from the production floor to all aspects of operations and unifies them in a single place and allows us to roll out those capabilities across all the facilities we might have around the globe. Let's take a look at how this plays out from a shop floor point of view and an operator point of view across several different operations. So the first of which is weighing. So here we can see machine integration. So we're integrated to these scales. It's guiding the user and the operator on how much to fill in a particular area. Simple color coding to show whether they are intolerant or not. So the operational steps here are guiding the people. Same for if we're in a different part of the manufacturing process. Here we're looking at the different steps or different operational steps of production. Again, we're guiding people towards what to do. Here we can see the operator registering an alert, which will be captured. And in this next step, we're going to record some metrics as well, some temperature that we're seeing on the production line. And one of these temperatures that we're recording is out of tolerance. So of course, all of this is recorded for analysis, so we can see over time, how our production operation is working, whether we're achieving the rules and quality. And then finally, in packaging, now we can see some real-time monitoring of our operation to see the operational effect, the original equipment effectiveness. We get complete visibility into what's happening over time for that piece of equipment. We get visibility into all the work orders it impacts, and we have a supervisor view, so we can get visibility across all operations. And from here we can make assignments and we can make operational changes simply by dragging and dropping and making sure that our operations are executed according to best practices across all the facilities that we have under our control. A good example of a customer that's using this as a best practice is Südzucker AG. It's a German company, actually the largest sugar producer in the world, producing about 4.8 million tons of sugar annually. They have 30 sugar factories and 3 refineries, mainly based in Europe. And they've used the manufacturing operations management solution to have significant cost savings in their operations while improving efficiency, centralizing and all of their data analysis to identify and replicate the best practices for production in one facility and then replicating that across hundreds of different products, thousands of barcodes and dozens of different facilities. And they do that across, again, not just production, but also warehouse, quality and maintenance processes. So they're synchronizing all their material flows to production, fulfilling demand-oriented production. So Delmia Manufacturing Operations Management is all about replicating best-in-class processes and enabling them across all the facilities and operations that we have through this business process-centric platform, enabling a global common approach for the fast deployment of best practices across multiple plants. And the benefit of that is to reduce our overall costs, to be able to rapidly deploy best practices so we can be efficient everywhere we work, to make sure that we are producing products with high productivity, also with high quality and safety for the workers so that we can maintain the customer satisfaction and fulfill on the plans that we've developed in our upstream processes. Delmia supports logistics and transportation planning in 2 main areas: inbound and outbound optimization within the supply chain, and then last mile delivery or home delivery optimization from the distribution center to the consumer. There are a lot of common capabilities that we provide across both of these abilities around highly automated process using advanced optimization in all cases. They are again collaborative processes that need different stakeholders to take part, but they also need to be realistic plans. So taking into consideration all the different key constraints and regulations. But again, the overall goal is to meet our business and operational goals. So it's business-based KPIs that we manage towards and business goals that we're trying to fulfill. But within those different capabilities, for inbound and outbound optimization, for example, we will manage or plan for different types of retail replenishment strategies for different types of product categories, whether they're baked goods, fresh produce, frozen, chilled, ambient, non-food. including all the physical constraints of the supply chain infrastructure, limitations, number of loading docks. We'll look at different vehicle types, so we can model different types of vehicle resources, those with chilled compartments, tail lifts, double deck, and also look at the people and resources that we need associated with that process as well, and making sure we comply with legal restrictions for the drivers and vehicle access if we're moving through regulated areas. So the supply chain is built up over many years for many companies. The investment in logistics is significant, and you've got to be able to match that with the ability to plan effectively. And we can help companies look at those supply chains that often contain many inefficiencies and help them eliminate that. And in home delivery optimization, we have key capabilities around multi-stop route planning, which is a tremendously complex problem that our optimization handles very easily. The ability to consider many different attributes and rules as part of the solution. These are very complicated problems to solve if we want to manage the process efficiently and also want to make sure that we meet our business goals. Sustainability is a big business goal, typically around logistics and transportation process. And so Quintic, which is the solution from Delmia, which manages this process, manages the puzzle solving process very quickly, considering all these different factors. It's sometimes a little difficult to watch optimization in action because it all happens behind the scenes, but here's a quick example of some transportation and logistics optimization that's taking place for a transportation operations within an urban district here in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. And I think the thing to notice is the key metrics across the top. Those are the KPIs, those are the goals that we're looking at that are important. And obviously we're trying to minimize the number of late shipments, but we're trying to do that in a way that optimizes the distance and costs based upon the transportation operations as well. So what you'll see here is the optimizer going through a number of different stages to try and continually find better ways to manage the transportation and distribution operations around this set of urban transportation operations by looking at the different ways to schedule operations, take into consideration the routes, all the regulations, the restrictions, the workforce, the fleet, the types of delivery. Again, a hugely complex combinatorial problem which the optimizer does with ease to come up with a plan which will make the best use of our transportation resources to minimize late shipments, but also respect the other business goals that we have around costs and distance traveled as well. We support logistics planning and transportation planning around the globe for lots of different organizations. Retail is one of those classic organizations where this is a key part of the process for them. This example here is one of the largest supermarket chains in the Netherlands with over 580 shops. With many hundreds of pickup points for online orders. And so the customer objectives here were to integrate the supply chain planning and optimization process to support this complex environment and business challenge. They had lots of those rules, constraints, and regulations they had to adhere to. And the results speak for themselves in terms of just being able to reduce the cost of transportation and the miles driven, which again, for many companies is a way to measure an impact on sustainability for their business objectives. As with many of the other solutions we've spoken about, the optimization is a key part of solving these very challenging and complex business problems and solving them with respect to the business-based goals that we have. So developing feasible plans based upon modeling all the intricacies and uniqueness of the supply chains and logistics and transportation requirements that we have. And the ability to do this in a way which drives a lot of sustainability goals as well, so that we can make sure that we hit those key milestones, those key business goals that we have, making sure that we maintain or increase our consumer and customer satisfaction at the same time while reducing costs. Before we come to our final summary, we covered a lot of different breadth of scope of solutions and capabilities, but there's still even more beyond that. There are some very unique business problems that Delmia has been able to solve for our customers in different areas. We're representing three of those example cases here. The first is around a very key part of the food and protein based process, which is the optimization of meat disassembly. There is a challenge for meat producers that involves being able to determine how best to optimize the yield from animals and livestock to make sure that the best profit is gained from the scarcity of the raw materials, given all the constraints and the problems with working with fresh food. So that optimization problem is sort of unique and niche, but is very widely used across protein producers around the globe. The second is around digital manufacturing or digital optimization of the facilities and resources themselves. So when you're setting up a new production line or making changes to existing lines, there is a world of virtual reality and simulation that can be used to make those changes in experimental ways and virtual ways without having to expend a lot of cost or time to determine that. So you can develop a rapid simulation model of new facilities, new production capabilities to see whether there is an ROI behind improving and innovating in the real world by experimenting in the virtual world first. And then finally, across all these operations that we have spoken about, people are the key part, teams are the key element that keep the whole process working. And so digital collaboration and using lean methods is another solution that Delmia offers in terms of digital whiteboards and digital lean meeting tools to provide a new level of employee engagement, to provide continuous improvement and problem solving across all aspects of the workforce. As we all know, there are many different pressures on CPGR companies in terms of consumer pressures, sustainability mandates, innovation requirements to stay ahead of the competition, regulations, all making the supply chain and operations and manufacturing process more and more complicated and harder to compete effectively in. So at Delmia, we believe that whether you are looking at the most strategic of processes like S&OP, whether you're looking at detailed scheduling or execution, whether you're looking at the virtual world and looking at how to develop new facilities or change new production lines, or whether you're just looking for ways to empower and engage employees that are working through collaborative and lean methods, we have solutions that we can bring to the table. And the results of those from our customers speak to themselves in terms of significant benefits around the improvement of customer service levels and the decrease of costs at the same time. All the same time developing effective plans that drive business-based goals, especially around some of the key initiatives of this decade around sustainability as well as profitability.
Thank you so much, Mr. Adrian Wood, for the in-depth and comprehensive presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, as promised, there is now time for the Q&A session. We have received a number of queries throughout the workshop, but we will be putting across very relevant and pertinent questions to our guests on the workshop topic and try finding answers to them. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me now introduce our guest for this Q&A session, Sanjeev R, Business Consultant Manager, Supply Chain and Manager, Dassault Systems. A very warm welcome, Sanjeev.
Thank you, Smriti. Good
Sanjeev,
afternoon, everyone.
a very warm welcome once again, Sanjeev. Throughout this session, we have been getting a lot of questions from our audiences. One first question which I would like to put across to you is using algorithms to manage demand or production planning in the VUCA world is counterproductive as assumptions are continuously changing. One has to go back to the manual planning. How to manage this?
Yeah, a good question. So algorithms, optimizations are always present, and the VUCA world is also always present. So our methodology is not about just going ahead and then putting across an algorithm or an optimizer. It's about understanding the business goals. So ours is a KPI-based optimizer, where we first understand what is the business goal that the company wants to achieve. Maybe in terms of sales order, it may be the OTIF, or it may be productivity, or it may be the sales margin, or the forecast accuracy. So these are the KPIs that what the team or the organization may be looking at, and then they might have a goal of going ahead and then improvising that particular KPIs by say 1%, 2%. So now these are the KPIs, and then for these, the optimizers are to be built. Algorithms is at a later stage, what algorithm I take to go ahead and then configure to get this particular thing. So we call that as strategies. When the KPI-based strategies, we can have multiple strategies built to achieve this particular business goals. Now, selection of these strategies may vary or may give varied results, and the algorithms running behind may have different values or different logics built in. The way of configuring the algorithms and aligning it back to the KPIs and the business goals is where the UCA problem can be solved. So that is what we think, that okay, the algorithms are required, but how do we configure that to mitigate the challenges is when you become more productive than it is going ahead and then becoming more counterproductive. Hope I have answered the question.
Absolutely, Sanjeev. And I think the best key takeaways from this question, this answer, I think that will be sufficing the question put across to you. Sanjeev, taking this Q&A session ahead, we have got a lot many other questions. The second question is, can we do demand forecasting with multiple variables using 3DS Delmia?
Yes, demand forecasting with multiple variables is the need of the hour. For example, there are external factors, and price or the inflation, the change in the commodity prices. So how do I take this into consideration and then see that, okay, how the sales, the margins and the financials are with reference to my demand that is coming in from the market. We can definitely do about what a statistical forecasting tool can do to go ahead and then take the external factors into consideration and then come out with the best possible forecast methodology.
Right. And the way you have explained this, I think the second question to you will be, can your solution take data from SAP and ERP software?
Yes, we are certified with SAP and we can do integrations with SAP and certified adaptive, or we have multiple other ways of connecting. Maybe it is web services, Kafka, MQTT, any kind of integration protocols to go ahead and then integrate with any other ERP systems.
Right. Okay. And what if we talk about the Dassault systems? Does Dassault systems support detailed scheduling?
Yes, I mean, as part of the integrated supply chain, detailed scheduling at a daily sequencing level is part of our solution. And then we do go ahead and then provide the sequencing optimization on changeover time, setup time reduction, and also the batch scheduling as the major contributor in this industry.
This is wonderful. And what are the different modules of your solution? Does it support end-to-end supply chain planning?
Yes, as I told, okay, it is an integrated supply chain solution, right from the supply chain network or building a network, demand planning, supply planning, the tactical level of master production scheduling, detailed scheduling, coupled with execution. So this forms the complete chain of supply plan solutions. And also we augment that with the workforce planning and the logistics, which is inbound and outbound optimization for last mile delivery, which is very important for the CPG industries. So this is the complete suite or the modules available in Dassault Systems manufacturing solution.
This is absolutely wonderful, Sanjeev. Thank you so much for answering all those questions from our attendees there. And with that, we have come to the end of this session on reimagining smart manufacturing and supply chain planning presented by Dassault Systems and ETRetail.com. Thank you once again to the speakers, Mr. Ajith Gopinath and Mr. Adrian and our guest Sanjeev R for your time and the knowledge you shared here. Thank you to our audience for being so patient and interactive. Take care and stay safe.